Today's story is titled, She Had No Choice But to Wed New York's Most Egocentric Millionaire Until Everything Changed. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Please drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain had been falling since dawn, soaking the sidewalks of Manhattan and washing the color out of the morning. Claire Evans pulled her thin cardigan tighter across her chest as she hurried down West 57th Street. Her paycheck from the café barely lasted through rent and groceries, and last night her landlord had taped a final notice to her door. 30 days. That was all she had left. Her phone buzzed once inside her pocket. A name appeared on the screen that made her stomach clench. Adrian Blackwell. Most people in New York knew that name. The most arrogant millionaire in the city. A man whose companies shaped skylines, whose cold stare had made executives shiver. A man so used to control that even rumors said he considered emotions a waste of time. Claire had met him only once. She had spilled a tray of iced coffee across his tailored suit during a luncheon for one of his subsidiaries. She remembered the way he looked at her that day, sharp, silent, assessing. She expected him to fire her on the spot, yet he simply said, "Careful," and walked away. Now he was calling her. She answered with a breath she could barely find. "Hello? Miss Evans?" His voice came through, low and steady, the kind that did not ask for permission. "I need to see you. Now." Her heart raced. "Sir, I am on my way to work. This is not a request. I will send a car." The call ended before she could reply. A black sedan pulled up to the curb exactly 30 seconds later. Inside, the leather seats were warm, and the city flickered past the windows like a film she did not belong in. Claire tried to smooth her damp hair, but nothing could change the sinking feeling in her chest. What could a millionaire like him possibly want from someone like her? The car stopped in front of a private rooftop lounge overlooking Central Park. The elevator doors opened to a quiet space filled with soft golden light and the scent of citrus. Adrian stood alone near the glass railing, wearing a charcoal suit that looked as if it cost more than her monthly rent. He did not turn when he spoke. "You are late." "I came as fast as I could," Claire said, breathing hard. He faced her then, and the world seemed to tighten around the severity of his expression. No warmth, no smile, just precision. "Miss Evans," he said, "I have a proposal for you." Her pulse stumbled. "A proposal?" He reached into his coat and placed a thin folder on the table beside them. A contract, several pages long, her name typed neatly at the top. "Marry me," he said. "Think of it as a contract." "I should." For a moment Claire forgot how to breathe. The rain outside softened to a hush, as if even the city was stunned. "I do not understand," she whispered. "You do not even know me." "I know enough," Adrian replied. "You need financial stability. I need a wife for several upcoming events and for meeting the terms of a business arrangement within my family. This solves both problems." Claire stepped back. "You want a fake marriage." "A legally binding one," he corrected. "But temporary. You will be compensated generously. Your debts cleared. Your rent secured." His gaze held hers, unwavering. "In return, you will accompany me to 5 major events and maintain the appearance of a functional marriage." Her throat tightened. "This is insane." "Insane," he said calmly, "but efficient." She clasped her hands together to stop them from trembling. "Why me?" Adrian's eyes flickered just once as if something unguarded almost surfaced. But then it was gone. "Because you do not want anything from me," he said, "and you owe me nothing. That makes you reliable." The folder sat between them like a doorway to a life she never imagined, a life she was afraid to want. "Read it," Adrian said. "Decide before midnight." Claire looked at the contract, then at the man who offered it. A millionaire whose heart seemed carved from stone. A man she should have run from. Yet the truth hit her like cold rain. She had no choice left. And that was exactly how everything began. The contract folder felt heavier in Claire's hands than its thin pages should ever allow. She sat on the edge of her small apartment bed that night, the city humming beyond the cracked window, and read each line with a pulse that refused to steady. 3 conditions stood out in bold print. First, she would accompany Adrian Blackwell to 5 major public events. Second, She would maintain the appearance of a unified marriage at all times. Third, there would be no emotional involvement, no intrusion into each other's private lives, and absolutely no discussion of the contract with anyone. It was clean, cold, and precise, exactly like him. Her eyes lingered on the final clause. Upon completion, all debts belonging to Miss Evans will be settled in full, and adequate housing will be provided for the duration of the agreement. She closed the folder. The 30-day eviction notice still clung to her door. Her chest tightened. This was not a dream. It was a lifeline made of steel. Before midnight, she sent a single text. "I agree." The reply came instantly. "A car will arrive at 8 in the morning." When the sun rose, Claire stood outside her building with a small bag and a larger knot in her stomach. The same black sedan arrived exactly on time, as if punctuality was another one of Adrian's unbreakable laws. Inside the car, a stylist waited with fabric samples, jewelry trays, and a digital tablet filled with event schedules. Claire tried to follow everything she said, but her mind drifted back to the rooftop and the way Adrian had looked at her. Not with affection, not even with interest. It was the look of a man selecting the right tool for a difficult job. The sedan carried her past Midtown, through a private security gate, and up the circular drive of a penthouse tower that seemed to rise directly into the clouds. Claire stepped out, her breath catching as she looked up at the glass facade that reflected the entire skyline. Adrian waited at the entrance. He was already dressed for the day, crisp lines and quiet confidence wrapped into one immovable presence. "You are on time," he said. "I thought that mattered to you," she answered. "It does." He gestured for her to follow him inside. The elevator rose without a sound, opening into a penthouse that looked more like an art museum than a home. Marble floors, towering windows, and a long, silent hallway that felt colder than the weather outside. "This will be your residence during the contract," Adrian said. "You will have access to the guest suite and private study. Staff will assist you with preparation for each event." Claire tried to steady her voice. "And you?" He looked at her with that same unreadable expression. "I will be where I need to be." She nodded, gripping the folder again. The contract that had already changed her life. "Your first event is in 3 days," Adrian said. "A charity gala. You will be introduced as my wife." Her heart jumped. "Already? You agreed to the terms." His words were not unkind, but they were final. Claire stood there, surrounded by luxury she had never imagined, realizing that every step from this moment forward would be watched, judged, measured. She had stepped into his world, and there was no turning back now. For the next 2 days, Claire moved through the penthouse like a guest who was afraid to touch anything. The staff worked around her with quiet efficiency, measuring her for gowns, adjusting her posture, and guiding her through etiquette she had never imagined she would need. Every hour felt like stepping deeper into someone else's life. Someone polished, someone perfect, someone she was not. On the morning of the 3rd day, she stood in front of the full-length mirror, wearing a silver evening gown chosen for the charity gala. The fabric shimmered like water under moonlight, shaping itself around her in ways that made her forget, for just a moment, the weight of the contract that held her here. A soft knock sounded at the door. Adrian entered without hesitation, stopping a few steps inside the room. His eyes moved over the gown with a slow, assessing calm. "It fits," he said. "Good." Claire expected a compliment, or at least a sign of approval that did not sound like a performance review. But Adrian remained exactly as he had always been. Distant, calculating, controlled. She cleared her throat. "You said this gala is important." "It is." He stepped closer, adjusting the silver clasp on her shoulder. "Several board members will be there. They expect stability, maturity, and unity. You will give them that." "I will try," she said. "You will do more than try." His tone was steady, but not harsh. It was the voice of a man accustomed to being obeyed, a man who believed failure was simply an unnecessary inconvenience. Claire looked down at the gown. "What if I make a mistake?" Adrian paused. For the first time since she met him, the sharp edge in his eyes softened, if only slightly. "Then you follow my lead," he said. "I will not let you fail in public." Something inside her stumbled at those words. Not warmth, not comfort, but a strange flicker of trust she did not want to name. He stepped back. "There is one more thing." He handed her a thin velvet box. Inside lay a simple wedding band, elegant but understated. "You will wear this tonight," he said. Appearances matter. Claire slipped the ring onto her finger. It felt foreign, too heavy for something so small. "How long do I keep this on?" she asked. "Until the contract ends." She nodded, even as the truth settled deeper into her chest. For the world to believe they were married, she would have to live as though it were real. Every photograph, every handshake, every shared glance would become part of a performance she barely understood. Adrian studied her for a long moment. "The car leaves at 7. Be ready." When he left the room, Claire looked at her reflection again. The silver gown, the ring, the faint, nervous tremor in her hands. She was stepping onto a stage she had never prepared for. Tonight, New York would see her as the wife of Adrian Blackwell, and she had no idea what that first night would demand of her. By 7 o'clock, the penthouse had fallen into a hush that made every sound feel amplified. Claire stood near the elevator in her silver gown, the wedding band glinting faintly under the soft lights. She held her breath when Adrian approached, dressed in a classic black tuxedo that matched the sharp confidence in his step. "You look prepared," he said. "I hope so," she replied. "You will follow my lead tonight. Stay beside me unless I tell you otherwise. Speak only when spoken to, and above all, maintain composure. People will be watching." She swallowed. "I understand." 2. The gala was held at a luxury hotel overlooking the East River, and the moment they stepped out of the car, Claire felt the world tilt. Cameras flashed like lightning. Voices rose, calling Adrian's name, each reporter pushing for a closer angle. Claire kept her chin lifted just as the stylist had taught her, but her heartbeat thundered beneath the gown. Adrian placed a hand at the small of her back. The touch was light, almost formal, but it grounded her in a way she did not expect. Inside the ballroom, the glow of chandeliers washed over crystal tables and polished marble floors. Wealth moved through the room like a language spoken without words. Adrian guided Claire through clusters of executives and investors, introducing her with a measured confidence that made the whole arrangement feel strangely real. "This is my wife, Claire," he said more than once, each time with the same steady tone. Some guests smiled politely, others raised eyebrows. A few exchanged glances that carried quiet disbelief. Claire felt it all, but she kept her posture straight, repeating the phrases she had practiced. "A pleasure to meet you. Thank you for having us. The evening is beautiful." It was going smoothly until a man stepped into their path near the central fountain. His suit was navy, his smile sharp, and his eyes held a glint that made something inside Claire tighten. "Adrian," he said, "you finally brought a date, or should I say, a wife." But it said, "Betu hive of the mama." Adrian's jaw tightened barely enough to notice. Leon Blackwell. Claire recognized the last name immediately. Adrian's cousin. Leon turned to her with a smooth, amused charm. "Claire, is it? Congratulations. I did not think Adrian would ever settle down." Adrian answered before she could. "We are not here for commentary, Leon." Leon chuckled. "Relax. I only mean that everyone is curious. A sudden marriage tends to raise questions, especially when there was no engagement, no announcement, no hint of romance." The words were soft, but the intent was sharp. Claire felt heat rising in her cheeks. Adrian moved slightly closer to her. "If you have concerns, address them through the board, not tonight." Leon tilted his head. "Concerns? I have none, but others might wonder if this marriage is convenient." The air tightened. Leon's smile lingered, then he drifted away, leaving behind a silence that pressed against Claire's ribs. Adrian guided her toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. "Do not let him unsettle you. He thinks we are hiding something," she said. "He enjoys provoking, that is all." Adrian's voice dropped lower. "You handled yourself well." It was the closest he had come to giving her praise. Unexpected warmth rose in her chest. The night continued with speeches, photographs, and whispered conversations Claire could barely track. Yet through it all, Adrian stayed near her, steady as a compass. Near the end of the event, an older board member stumbled while reaching for his glass. Claire reacted instantly, catching it before it shattered and offering a calm smile. "It is all right. I have it," she said. The man laughed in relief. "Adrian, your wife has quicker reflexes than you. And well." Guests around them murmured approvingly. A small ripple of genuine goodwill spread through the circle. Adrian looked at Claire with the faintest trace of surprise. Then something else, something softer. When they finally stepped back into the cool night air, he said quietly, "That was your first test, and you exceeded expectations." Claire lowered her gaze, her pulse fluttering. For the first time, she wondered if this arrangement would remain just a contract, or if the lines were already beginning to shift. The car ride back to the penthouse was quiet, but not the cold, distant quiet that usually settled between them. Something had shifted during the gala. The city lights streamed across the windows, scattering patterns across Claire's silver gown, and each time she glanced toward Adrian, she caught him studying her as though trying to make sense of a variable he had not accounted for. When they reached the penthouse, Adrian held the door for her. It was a small gesture, almost too ordinary for a man who lived by strategy rather than courtesy, yet it lingered with her long after they stepped inside. "You handled tonight well," he said as they walked down the long hallway. Claire placed her clutch on the console table. "I only did what I was supposed to do." "Many people do not," he replied. "Expectations are rarely met so precisely." She hesitated. Leon seemed very sure something was off. Adrian's expression hardened. "My cousin enjoys testing boundaries. He will try again. You should be prepared." Claire nodded, though her chest tightened. "He does not think we belong together. He thinks he can unsettle me by unsettling you." "And can he?" she asked softly. Adrian paused for a long moment. "No." The single word struck deeper than she expected. She turned away, unsure how to hold the strange warmth rising in her chest. She had entered this arrangement out of necessity, not trust, yet trust was beginning to slip in through the smallest cracks. A sudden chime sounded from the study. Adrian glanced toward it. "I need to take that call." "You may rest." Claire nodded and headed to the guest suite. She removed the ring, turning it between her fingers. Earlier that night, dozens of people had looked at her as though she belonged beside Adrian, even if only for a moment. And for a moment, she had almost believed it. She set the ring on the bedside table, but before she could step away, footsteps approached the doorway. Adrian stood there, the tuxedo jacket removed, his expression calmer than she had ever seen it. "There is one more thing," he said. Claire faced him, unsure of what to expect. "You asked earlier whether Leon could affect us," Adrian said. "The answer remains no. But there is something you should understand." He stepped closer, his voice steady but lower than before. "You are not here to be perfect. You are here to stand beside me. That is the purpose of this arrangement." Her breath caught. "I thought I was here to fulfill the contract." "You are," he said. "But the contract requires that we look unified, and unity requires trust." Claire felt the weight of his words settle around her like a quiet truth she had not expected to hear. "I will not let you be blindsided," he continued. "Not by Leon. Not by anyone. By 10. Their eyes held for a moment too long, suspended between obligation and something neither of them could name. "Good night, Claire," he said finally. "Good night, Adrian." After he left, Claire closed the door gently, her heart unsteady. She had entered his world as a necessity. Now she wondered if she was becoming something more than that. The morning after the gala arrived softer than Claire expected. Sunlight filtered through the tall glass windows of the penthouse, touching the marble floors with a pale warmth. She moved quietly through the kitchen, unsure whether Adrian was awake or whether he ever slept at all. The staff greeted her politely, but she sensed a new undercurrent in their tone, as if last night's flawless performance had subtly repositioned her in their eyes. Later that afternoon, the stylist returned with new dresses for the upcoming events. Claire tried them on one by one, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Leon's words, to the pressure behind every handshake, to the way Adrian had silently stepped closer when the room threatened to shift against her. She knew this contract was built on appearances, yet she could not ignore the moments that no longer felt like performance. As evening fell, Claire stepped out onto the penthouse rooftop terrace. The air was crisp, and the skyline spread before her like a sea of shimmering glass and steel. She rested her hands on the stone railing, letting the city's steady hum settle her thoughts. She did not hear Adrian approach until he spoke. "I thought I would find you here." She turned. He stood a few steps away, sleeves rolled, the rigid elegance of the day replaced with something quieter, something almost human. "I needed air," she said. He nodded once, joining her at the railing. "The first gala is always overwhelming." She let out a breath. "It felt like walking into a world I am not supposed to touch." "You handled it," he said. "Better than many would." She hesitated, looking out at the glowing buildings. Leon did not seem pleased. "Leon is rarely pleased," Adrian replied. "He wanted to see if you would falter. You did not." Claire traced the smooth railing under her fingertips. He suspects this marriage. He suspects everything, Adrian said. Suspicion is the only thing he is loyal to. They both fell silent, the city stretching infinitely around them. Claire glanced at him from the corner of her eye. Without the sharp tuxedo lines, without the boardroom glare, he looked different, still distant, still composed, but touched by something she had not seen before. "Why did you choose me?" she asked quietly. The question hung between them. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he did not look away. "Because I needed someone without an agenda," he said. "Someone who would not try to manipulate me or benefit from my name. Someone who would not attempt to shape my world for their advantage." Claire's pulse quickened. "And you believe I am that person?" "Yes," he said simply. The honesty in his tone startled her. She had expected arrogance or calculation, not this muted truth that seemed to reveal more than he intended. "What about you?" she asked. "What is your agenda?" Adrian's gaze shifted toward the skyline. "Control," he admitted. "I built everything I have by refusing to be vulnerable. Vulnerability invites interference. Contracts prevent it." Claire studied him, realizing there was a fracture behind the steel, a wound he did not speak of, a reason he kept the world at distance. "You said unity requires trust," she said softly. "It does. But trust requires something else." "It's C." Adrian glanced at her then, and for the first time since they had met, she saw uncertainty flicker in his eyes. Claire stepped back slightly, startled by the sudden closeness, by the unspoken tension rising between them like a quiet pulse. Adrian broke the moment first. "The next event is in 2 days. You should rest." Claire nodded, though her heart refused to settle. "Good night, Claire." "Good night, Adrian." 40. When she returned to her suite, she closed the door slowly, aware that something had shifted on that rooftop. She could not explain it, and she doubted he could either. But for the first time, the distance between them did not feel unbreakable. 2 days later, the penthouse felt different. Not warmer, not exactly friendlier, but less like a place Claire was borrowing and more like a place she was carefully learning to navigate. She woke early, reviewed the event schedule, and practiced the poised expressions the stylist had taught her. But beneath all of that, one truth lingered from the rooftop conversation. Adrian Blackwell was not as impenetrable as he appeared. That afternoon, Claire passed by the open door of his study. Adrian stood at the far end, hands on the desk, his posture rigid. A harsh voice crackled through the speakerphone. "You think a sudden marriage will make the board trust you?" the voice said. "It only proves you are hiding something." Claire recognized the tone before the name. Leon. Adrian did not raise his voice, but there was a coldness that reminded her of steel under pressure. "The board trusts results, something you have repeatedly failed to deliver." Leon laughed, sharp and dismissive. "You cannot protect her forever, Adrian. Some contracts do not hold up under scrutiny." The call cut abruptly. Adrian remained still, shoulders tense. Claire stepped back from the doorway, but not fast enough. He turned, catching sight of her. "You heard," he said. "I did not mean to listen," Claire replied. "It does not matter. Leon enjoys implying threats he will never act on." She hesitated. "Are you sure he will not?" Adrian exhaled slowly, the tension in his frame refusing to soften. "Leon wants control of the company. He has for years. He believes exposing flaws in my life will give him leverage." Claire stepped into the room. "He thinks our marriage is a flaw." Adrian met her eyes. "He thinks anything he cannot manipulate is a flaw." Silence settled between them, but it was not empty. It was thick with a truth both of them were beginning to understand. This arrangement was larger than the contract that had created it. Adrian closed the folder on his desk. "There is something you need to know about the next event." Claire braced herself. "What is it?" "It is a family gathering," he said. "My aunt, several board members, and people who have known me since I was a child. They will judge everything. How you speak, how you stand, how you look at me." Claire felt the weight of his words settle over her shoulders. "And what do you need me to do?" "Stand beside me," he said, "just as you did at the gala. Do not let them see space between us." She nodded, even as her pulse quickened. "I can do that." Adrian stepped closer, his voice lowered. "He will try to provoke you again. We have to do every 3. "Leon," she said. "Yes." Claire steadied her breath. "Then I will not break." For the first time that day, a faint flicker of approval crossed Adrian's expression. It was small, almost hidden, but it felt like something earned rather than granted. "Good," he said. That evening, Claire returned to her suite and placed the wedding band back on her finger. The metal no longer felt foreign. It felt like a shield. A fragile one, perhaps, but a shield she was willing to carry into whatever storm waited next. The Blackwell family estate was nothing like the sleek, modern penthouse. It sat on the northern edge of the Hudson River, a vast stone mansion framed by tall pines and old iron gates. Claire felt its weight the moment the car rolled up the gravel driveway. This was not just wealth. This was legacy. This was expectation. This was scrutiny carved into the walls. Adrian stepped out first, offering his hand to her. The gesture was simple, but his grip felt steadier than the night of the gala. Claire took a breath and walked beside him toward the entrance. Inside, a chorus of polite voices drifted through the hall. Board members, distant relatives, partners of the Blackwell empire, and at the center of it all, Eleanor Blackwell, Adrian's aunt, a woman with sharp eyes and an expression shaped by decades of power. "Adrian," she said, greeting him with a kiss on the cheek, "you finally brought your wife." Her attention shifted to Claire, scanning her from head to toe with an evaluation that felt both silent and loud. "Welcome, my dear. We have been curious about you." Claire smiled politely. "Thank you for having me." Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly, as if surprised Claire had answered with steady composure. "Come," she said. "Everyone is waiting. We'll have her." They entered a room filled with polished oak, floor-to-ceiling windows, and conversations that quieted the moment the couple stepped inside. Adrian rested a hand gently at Claire's back, guiding her forward. She stood tall, remembering every posture lesson she had practiced. Introductions began. Most guests responded with a polite smile. Some whispered questions behind raised champagne glasses, but one voice cut through the murmurs with unmistakable intent. "Well, this is interesting," Leon said, emerging from a corner near the fireplace. "The mysterious bride finally appears." Claire kept her face neutral. "Hello, Leon," he smirked. "You must understand. We have known Adrian his entire life. He has never been the type for sudden commitments." Adrian's tone sharpened. "This is not the place." "But it is exactly the place," Leon replied softly. "After all, family deserves honesty." The room breathed in. Claire felt the shift. Leon stepped closer, lowering his voice just enough to sound intimate and threatening at the same time. "So tell us, Claire, how long did you know Adrian before this marriage? Or was this arrangement simply convenient?" The word landed like a stone. Before Claire could answer, Adrian stepped between them. "That is enough," he said. Leon raised an eyebrow. "I am only asking what everyone else is thinking." Eleanor's gaze sharpened. "Leon, stop provoking." But Leon ignored her. "Adrian, you do realize that appearance alone will not protect you in the next board vote. They will want proof this union is real." Silence filled the room. Claire felt the pressure closing around them like tightening walls. Then Adrian did something she did not expect. He reached for her hand. Not the calculated gesture from the gala, not the rehearsed placement for cameras. His fingers slid into hers with something deeper, something unguarded. "Our marriage is real enough," Adrian said firmly. "And if anyone doubts that, they can bring their questions directly to me." A stunned hush rippled across the room. Leon's smirk faltered. "Touching, truly, but words do not erase suspicion." Adrian stepped forward, voice steady. "Suspicion does not intimidate me, and it will not touch her." For a moment, no one spoke. Adrian's hand remained in hers, warm and resolute. Claire felt a quiet shock move through her chest. He was not acting, not performing, not protecting a contract. He was protecting her. Eleanor finally broke the silence. "Dinner is ready," she said, her tone softer than before. "Let us take our seats." As the crowd dispersed, Claire whispered, "You did not have to defend me like that." Adrian looked at her, the guarded edge in his eyes slipping away. "I did." And in that small, undeniable truth, the contract between them felt like it had shifted into something neither of them could name yet, but both of them could feel.